Hi, I'm Colin Klipik. Welcome to Studio 2. This is an Australian-made Dawn woodworking vise. They're great. Really nice quality piece of kit. Super heavy. This is the 250mm version and it weighs in at about 13 kilograms. At the moment it's kind of useless to me because it needs to be mounted in a bench, and that's what we're going to look at in this video. This install isn't overly technical, but it's not that quick either, as there are a few details that can be a bit fiddly. But it's definitely worth the effort. Like I said, the vise weighs 13 kilograms and comes in at around 200mm deep on the front face and 250mm wide, which is where it gets its model number from. I've seen many vises installed in benches with coach screws that get screwed up from the bottom into timber or plywood packers. But I've never really been a fan of that method, and I've had to fix many vises that are installed that way. Instead, I'm going to use bolts and come in through the top of the bench. The first task is to remove the masonite bench top and Tasmanian oak edge. The back of the vise is 85mm high, and I'm going to use plywood packers that leave the rear jaw flush, or close to flush, with the 25mm bench top. That means I need packers adding up to about 60mm. I have an old piece of 18mm plywood, out of which I'll cut 3 small packers. That gets me to 54mm. I'll then use a piece of 6.4mm masonite to get to the required 60mm thickness. The pieces need to be 240 by 130mm to comfortably allow drilling for the bolt holes. Three pieces of plywood and the masonite, 60mm. That should work. The back of the vise has 2 gussets to strengthen the rear jaw. That means I'll need to cut out a section in each packer to allow for the gussets. This is irritating, but the gussets do make these Dawn vises very strong and last for a very long time, basically forever. To cut out these sections, you can use a jigsaw or bandsaw and then clean up the cuts with a chisel, but I'm going to use a router. Squaring up the packer to the bench, I'll use a flush trim bit along the bench to cut the slot. Now, I would never screw anything down to a bench for clamping, but since the masonite goes over the top and the packers are unseen, I'll make an exception just this once. Adjusting the router to the right depth, I then make the cut. It's a great finish, but I'll need to make another pass as the bit isn't quite wide enough. Turning the packer around, I can make the next cut. With a second pass on each slot to take out another couple of millimeters, the packers now fit with the gussets. Because the vise is cast, the 60mm thickness leaves approximately 25mm for the MDF bench top. Close enough. Now flip the vise over and mark the drill holes. Then stack drill the bolt holes. I'd like the vise to sit around about here, and to do that I have to take out a section of timber here, and I'm also going to cut out a recess in the bench top just up the top here. That's so that the back jaw can actually sit flush inside the bench when the Tassie oak goes over the top here and when the masonite sits over there. So that'll give a nice clean flush finish. So I'll flip the vise over, put a couple of marks on there, and then I'll use the flush trim router bit to just take out that recess. I'm using a scrap piece of 42 by 19 pine to create a fence for the flush trim bit to roll against. As I watch this, I'm really quite surprised at how well the dust extraction works on this inexpensive router. Next, use the track saw to cut out part of the cabinet underneath. Then use a tenon saw to cut out the last couple of sections and clean up the corners. I'm going to use 3/8 by 4-inch bolts, so I need to measure the diameter of the washer and the depth of cut to allow for the bolt head and washer. A 30mm Forstner bit will do, and I'll need to drill to about 10mm deep. These bits are old and a bit rusty, but they'll do the job. Drill the holes, clean up the mess. Then use one of the packers to see if the holes line up. I used a packer as a template, so it should work. Bear in mind that a bit more drilling out may be required. You don't want the fit too tight, as you'll need to make adjustments. A bit of play is good here. Then you can start maneuvering the vise into place. This is heavy, awkward work, but you get there in the end. Tighten up the bolts and then make some adjustments. Check that the rear jaw doesn't stick out from the bench. A straight edge along the bench works well for this. Refit the masonite top and Tasmanian oak edge, ensuring a flush finish. Then, using some leftover Tasmanian oak, cut a backing plate for the front jaw. I'm leaving about 10mm overhang. Then center the backing plate. Fasten the plate with screws, and then check that it's level, flush, and even. Now, unwind the vise and check that it's all working. It's useful to point out here that the vise should not be lubricated. I phoned the manufacturer to confirm this. The reason is that lubricant attracts dust, which then clogs and damages the vise screw and nut. This vise has a very satisfying action. It's just lovely. Well, like I said, this was never going to be a quick install, but I actually think it's worth the effort to go to the trouble of using bolts and countersinking them into the bench top, which is underneath this top surface here, rather than using coach screws from the bottom, because I think it actually just gives a much more stable result. I should also point out that these two holes here are actually threaded, and the purists out there would be saying, well, no, you shouldn't screw in straight from that side, you should actually drill through this and countersink it and then put a small countersunk screw in from the other side. Well, sure, yeah, that's fine. The thing is though, I've used many of these in schools. In fact, I've installed many of them in school workshops, and sometimes for the sake of speed and convenience, it's easier just to take a new backing plate, cut it on the drop saw and screw it in from this side, and then whoever's using the vise can just get on with it. So that's up to you. Functionally though, it works the same either way. So this is the Dawn number 250 vise, the woodworking vise. It's now sitting in my bench. I look forward to using it. I think it's going to be great. So if you like this, if you found it helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.